stay focused, man, get this money and keep working and take care of this opportunity that we got to provide for all our people. How he switched it up, how he toned up, got fit, got his mind healthy.
Shiesty has come forward and made it clear that he believes Gucci Mane does not want to pay him, and the picture forming around his finances is becoming one of the most troubling stories in hip-hop right now. This is not simply another artist-label disagreement where somebody complains online and everybody moves on. What we are looking at is a dispute involving potentially millions of dollars in music revenue, a contract that Shiesty has described in harsh terms, a violent Dallas incident that federal prosecutors alleged was planned in advance, and a young rapper who once looked like he could become one of Memphis's biggest stars now in federal custody, while his music continues bringing in revenue he may not personally be receiving. At the center of the situation is Gucci Mane, the label boss who helped give Pooh Shiesty his major break and introduced him to a much bigger audience. Now, their business relationship has become the subject of serious questions about contracts, royalties, and who is benefiting from the music Shiesty helped create. The complete story is far more complicated than a few social media posts make it seem, and as we break it down, the bigger question becomes impossible to ignore. How did Pooh Shiesty's financial situation become so difficult while his catalog continues to generate attention and money? Stay locked in. Yo, what's good, fam? Today, we're breaking down Pooh Shiesty's contract dispute with Gucci Mane, the money connected to his catalog, the alleged Dallas confrontation, and what all of this could mean for his financial future. Let's get into it. To understand how this situation developed, you have to go back to where Pooh Shiesty started. Born Launtrell Donald Williams Jr. on November 8, 1999, in Memphis, Tennessee, Pooh Shiesty grew up around people who already understood the music business. His father, Launtrell Williams Sr., known in Memphis circles as Mob Boss, founded Mob Ties Records and had deep connections to the local music scene. Pooh Shiesty spent time in Memphis before relocating to Pflugerville, Texas, with his mother for a period, but music stayed in his life. He was freestyling in school lunchrooms, around his neighborhood, and anywhere else he could find people willing to listen. By the time he started releasing songs as a teenager, it was obvious this was more than a hobby. This was a young artist who had been building toward a career for years. He began gaining attention around Memphis with songs such as Shiesty Summer, At It Again, and Day One. Those tracks helped put his name on the radar of someone known for spotting raw talent, Gucci Mane. By April 2020, Pooh Shiesty had signed a joint venture deal with Gucci Mane's 1017 Records, with the label operating under the Atlantic Records umbrella. For a young rapper who had been grinding on his own, that signing was everything. It gave Pooh Shiesty access to a major distribution network, industry connections, promotional support, and the instant credibility that came with being connected to one of the biggest names in Southern rap. Gucci Mane wasn't simply collecting artists for a roster, he was building 1017 into a serious brand, and Pooh Shiesty quickly became one of its biggest pieces. Then things took off fast. Pooh Shiesty released Shiesty Season in February 2021, and the project debuted near the top of the Billboard 200. Tracks like Back in Blood with Lil Durk, Neighbors, Box of Churches, and Guarda helped push his name into the mainstream. Back in Blood climbed high on the Billboard Hot 100 and became one of the standout street rap records of that era. He was working with Lil Baby, Gucci Mane, and other major artists while his streaming numbers continued climbing across Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. He was also reportedly booking paid appearances in the $20,000 to $40,000 range per show. From the outside, everything looked like the 1017 machine was working exactly as planned, and Pooh Shiesty was right in the middle of that success. But here's where things get complicated. Before going any further, you have to understand how music money actually works, because this is where a lot of the online conversation starts getting messy. When claims surfaced that Gucci Mane was withholding Pooh Shiesty's money, and when some reports and online discussions pointed to the music generating more than $25 million in revenue, some fans treated that figure as if Pooh Shiesty had $25 million sitting in his personal account. That's not how the music business works. Gross revenue is the total money generated by music through streams, sales, licensing, and other sources before expenses and splits are taken out. Label revenue refers to what reaches the label after distributors and other business partners take their agreed shares. Then there's recoupment, and this is where the numbers can change dramatically. Depending on the contract, a label may recover advances and certain approved costs, including recording expenses, marketing, music videos, promotional campaigns, and other charges. before an artist receives particular royalty payments. And that's still not the whole picture. Royalties, publishing income, and mechanical royalties can all operate under different agreements, with different parties potentially taking a percentage along the way. So a song can generate a huge amount of money, while the artist's personal share ends up being far smaller than the headline figure suggests. By the time that revenue moves through distributors, labels, publishers, producers, songwriters, and other contractual obligations, the artist's actual take-home amount can look completely different from the number fans see online. In many traditional recording deals, an artist's royalty percentage can be relatively limited, sometimes falling around 15% to 25% of the applicable royalty base after contractual deductions and recoupment, although the exact deal can vary heavily from one artist to another. In Pooh Shiesty's case, some commentary has pointed to royalty rates around the 15% to 20% range, although the exact terms of his private agreement with 1017 have not been publicly confirmed in full, so let's use those figures as an example of how the money can actually move. If a project generates $10 million in gross streaming revenue, a distributor could take a percentage before the remaining money reaches the label. What is left then goes through the label's accounting system. From there, the label may apply revenue toward the artist's outstanding recoupment balance. Depending on the contract, that balance could include a 6-figure or 7-figure advance, recording expenses, video budgets, marketing, promotion, and other approved costs. Only after the applicable balance is recouped would the artist's royalty percentage generally begin generating additional royalty income under those terms. At a 15% royalty rate, an artist's share of $10 million in gross revenue could end up being far below $1 million after all the relevant deductions and splits are considered. That alone does not prove money was stolen or withheld. It shows how complicated recording contracts can be. At the same time, that structure can leave a young artist feeling like the money coming in and the money reaching their pocket are two completely different numbers. Let's take the example a step further so the math is easier to follow. Imagine Pooh Shiesty received a $1 million signing advance after joining 1017, along with another $500,000 in recording expenses for his project, plus additional promotional costs. Under this hypothetical scenario, the recoupment balance could approach $2 million before the artist's royalty account begins generating additional payments. Now imagine Back in Blood and Shiesty Season collectively generated $15 million in gross revenue across various platforms. If a distributor took 20%, roughly $12 million would remain before other contractual accounting. If the hypothetical $2 million recoupment balance then had to be recovered, that could leave $10 million as the remaining royalty base under this simplified example. At a 20% artist royalty, that would produce a theoretical artist share of $2 million. But even that figure is not necessarily the final amount landing in the artist's bank account. Management fees, producer or songwriter splits, taxes, publishing arrangements, and other contractual obligations could reduce the amount further. So $15 million in headline revenue could, under a hypothetical structure, turn into a much smaller personal net amount. That's the part social media often leaves out. A massive revenue figure does not automatically equal massive take-home money, and the exact outcome depends on the contracts and accounting behind the music. But Pooh Shiesty's situation became even more complicated because something far more serious was happening outside the business side. In 2020, as his career was gaining momentum, Pooh Shiesty became involved in a federal criminal case connected to a confrontation in Florida. The case included serious federal firearms allegations, creating a legal problem that would soon collide with the career and financial momentum he had been building. He was arrested twice within a year, eventually pleaded guilty, and in April 2022 was sentenced to 5 years and 3 months in federal prison. After earning credit for good behavior, he was released in October 2025 after serving nearly 3 years. During that entire stretch, the music never stopped moving. His catalog kept streaming, his name stayed in the conversation, and fans continued playing the records that made him famous. But Pooh Shiesty wasn't there to tour, book appearances, capitalize on his momentum, or negotiate his next move from the strongest possible position. He was behind bars, while the business surrounding his music continued operating without him. Every month he spent incarcerated was also time he could not spend building his career in person. When Pooh Shiesty returned home in October 2025, it looked like the comeback was already loading. Within months, he released FTO, one of his first major post-prison releases, and the response showed that his fanbase had not disappeared. The song made a strong impact on the charts, proving there was still serious demand for the Memphis rapper and his music. There were also reports that Pooh Shiesty had interest from other major players in the industry, including discussions involving Yo Gotti and CMG Records. If those reports were accurate, it showed that his name still carried real value despite the years he had spent away. But there was a major problem. His existing contractual relationship with Gucci Mane's 1017 Records had not simply vanished. That meant questions surrounding his label agreement, catalog rights, masters, royalties, and future earnings were still hanging over him. And according to federal prosecutors, that tension eventually became connected to a much more serious situation. Federal prosecutors alleged that on January 10, 2026, Pooh Shiesty was involved in a confrontation connected to a recording studio in Dallas, Texas. According to the indictment filed in the Northern District of Texas, prosecutors alleged that what appeared to be a business meeting was arranged to discuss his recording contract. At the time, prosecutors said Pooh Shiesty was under home confinement. The indictment further alleged that a case supervisor created fraudulent day passes that allowed him to travel to locations that had not been approved, including the location connected to that January meeting. Those are allegations from prosecutors, not established facts about every detail of what happened, and the distinction matters. The caseworker was later fired. Once at the studio, prosecutors alleged that Pooh Shiesty led what they described as a coordinated armed takeover. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office, prosecutors claim he used an AK-style pistol to force one of the alleged victims to sign paperwork releasing him from his recording agreement. His father, Lontrell Williams Sr., and fellow Memphis rapper Big 30 were among several people arrested in connection with the incident. Prosecutors alleged that 3 victims were robbed of roughly $450,000 worth of cash, jewelry, and other valuables, with reports also mentioning a wedding ring. One alleged victim, identified in court documents by the initials RD and described as the owner of 1017 Records, was identified by multiple outlets as Gucci Mane, whose legal name is Redrick Delantic Davis. Court-related reporting also alleged that one person was choked during the confrontation. Pooh Shiesty and his co-defendants face serious federal allegations, including kidnapping and robbery charges that can carry extremely severe penalties if convicted. These remain allegations, and the defendants are entitled to due process as the case moves forward. The paperwork prosecutors say Pooh Shiesty wanted signed has also become a major part of the story. According to federal court documents, the proposed agreement reportedly included 3 major demands: immediate termination of his recording deal with 1017 Records, release from his obligations under that agreement along with control of his masters and intellectual property, and the transfer of 1017's approval rights involving Atlantic Records directly to Pooh Shiesty. Prosecutors allege the document was prepared just hours before the confrontation took place. Gucci Mane later addressed the incident publicly, comparing the alleged tactics to the reputation surrounding Suge Knight and Death Row Records during the 1990s. Gucci also said he signed the paperwork under duress, meaning he claimed he did not sign it freely. And here's the legal issue that makes the whole situation even more complicated. A document signed because someone is allegedly threatened with violence is not automatically treated the same way as a freely negotiated contract. If a court determines that a signature was obtained through coercion or duress, that agreement can potentially be challenged or invalidated. So even if the paperwork contained everything Pooh Shiesty wanted, signing it under alleged threat would create a massive legal problem. That brings us to the staggering irony at the center of this saga. Prosecutors allege that the confrontation was designed to break Pooh Shiesty free from a recording agreement, yet instead of giving him a clean exit, the alleged incident led to another federal case with potentially life-changing consequences. The very move prosecutors say was intended to change his contract situation could end up making his legal and financial situation dramatically more difficult. He went from a major comeback record, reported interest from another label, and what looked like the start of a huge second chapter, to sitting in federal custody again, facing the possibility of a life sentence if convicted on the most serious charges. And here's the detail that makes this situation even more complicated. Less than a week after his April 2026 arrest, while he remained in custody, and his trial was reportedly set for February 2027, his music was still moving through the same label system he was accused of trying to leave. On August 7, 2026, Pooh Shiesty's 16-track album, All Eyes on Shiesty, was released. The project includes appearances from Big 30, K-Carbon, Baby Slime, Glorilla, and Sexy A Red, with production contributions from Tay Keith on Booty Club. The tracklist opens with I'm Back, and also includes songs such as Federal Reality, Reap What You Sow, Collecting Tears, McLaren Truck, and Bigger Than the Program. The album was released through Gucci Mane's 1017 Global Music and Atlantic Records, Think about that for a second. The same business relationship that prosecutors say Pooh Shiesty was allegedly trying to break away from was still behind the release of his music while he remained in federal custody, unable to personally promote the project, tour, make appearances, or take advantage of the normal opportunities that come with an album rollout. But this is where the story gets more complicated than simply saying Gucci Mane isn't paying his artists. A label can have contractual rights to release music recorded under an existing agreement depending on the specific terms of that contract, with a joint venture arrangement, ownership, distribution, masters, royalties, and approval rights can all be divided according to the paperwork. The public cannot know the exact accounting without seeing the full agreements and financial records. And there's another major issue hanging over the relationship. Prosecutors allege that Pooh Shiesty was involved in an armed confrontation involving Gucci Mane, and that the incident was connected to an attempted contract release. If those allegations are proven, the relationship between the artist and label boss would obviously be damaged beyond repair, but allegations are still allegations until proven in court. So if people say Gucci Mane is simply withholding Pooh Shiesty's money, that claim needs to be handled carefully. Without the complete contracts, royalty statements, recoupment records, and payment history, nobody outside the parties involved can accurately say exactly what money is owed, what has been paid, or what deductions are legitimate. What can be said is that the alleged confrontation could make a negotiated exit far more difficult. Instead of resolving a business dispute through attorneys and contract negotiations, the situation allegedly escalated into a federal criminal case with enormous consequences. Pooh Shiesty may not only have failed to get the release he allegedly wanted, he may have made an already complicated business relationship dramatically harder to resolve. Now let's address another claim that has been circulating, the idea that Gucci Mane is going broke, and therefore needs Pooh Shiesty's catalog revenue to stay afloat. That narrative deserves a much closer look, because internet rumors and actual financial records are two very different things. What can actually be established from the public information is that Gucci Mane has remained active with new music and business ventures, including his 2025 album episodes, while also publicly discussing sobriety and personal stability. There is no clear public evidence proving that Gucci Mane is facing a financial crisis. That's important, because once an artist and label boss have a public falling out, almost every business move gets viewed through that conflict. Gucci releasing music connected to Pooh Shiesty's catalog and potentially collecting revenue can look like greed to one person and normal contractual business to another. Those are two very different interpretations. Saying Gucci Mane may benefit financially from Pooh Shiesty's music is not the same thing as saying Gucci Mane is broke and needs that money to survive. Without verified financial records, turning those claims into one story goes beyond what the evidence shows. What is clear is that All Eyes on Shiesty can generate money through streaming, publishing, licensing, and mechanical royalties even while Pooh Shiesty remains incarcerated. Music doesn't stop earning just because an artist can't physically be outside promoting it, and when a label holds contractual rights while a major distributor handles the release, the revenue continues moving through that business structure. That creates an uncomfortable twist in the story. The very label arrangement Pooh Shiesty allegedly wanted to escape is still involved in releasing his music and generating revenue while he awaits trial. But exactly how much of that money reaches Pooh Shiesty, how much goes toward recoupment, and what other parties receive a share cannot be determined without the underlying contracts and accounting statements. And the financial picture gets even more complicated because the contract is only one piece of the puzzle. When Pooh Shiesty returned home in October 2025, his career momentum appeared to come roaring back. His music was performing strongly, appearances were reportedly being booked, and the attention around his comeback was growing fast. Then came the lifestyle spending, luxury cars, custom vehicles, and the kind of rides that make a statement before the doors even open. For an artist coming home after years in prison with a major record behind him, that kind of spending isn't unusual. But expensive cars can burn through cash incredibly quickly. A vehicle that costs $150,000 can lose value almost immediately after leaving the dealership. Then add insurance, maintenance, storage, customization, registration, and financing costs, and the monthly expenses can pile up fast. If income suddenly gets interrupted, the owner may discover that the car cannot be sold for anything close to what was originally spent. The jewelry can create a similar problem. Chains, watches, and custom pieces can look like serious wealth, but they are not always easy to turn back into cash at full value. Finding the right buyer can take time, and when someone is sitting in federal custody facing serious charges, they don't control the timeline. Then there are the legal bills, and this is where the financial pressure can become brutal. Federal criminal defense is rarely a simple situation with one predictable bill. Pooh Shiesty's case involves multiple defendants, a federal indictment, alleged surveillance evidence, electronic monitoring records, financial information, and legal issues that could require months of preparation before the reported February 2027 trial date. Every motion, investigation, expert review, court appearance, document review, and hour of attorney preparation can add to the cost, and unlike music revenue, legal expenses don't pause just because the artist is behind bars. Experienced federal defense attorneys often bill by the hour, and those hours can pile up quickly when a case involves extensive discovery, thousands of pages of records, electronic evidence, and multiple defendants. Federal criminal cases can become extremely expensive long before a jury hears the first witness. Court documents from Pooh Shiesty's 2022 proceedings estimated his net worth at approximately $3.45 million at that time. Put that figure next to the lifestyle associated with a successful rapper, the ongoing legal expenses, and the uncertainty surrounding his recording agreement, and the financial pressure becomes much easier to understand. The public image of wealth and the amount of liquid cash actually available to an artist can be two completely different things. So when people say Pooh Shiesty is going broke, what they're really describing may be pressure coming from several directions at once. There's the recording contract, the royalty structure, and any potential recoupment balance. There's also the music that continues generating revenue, but that money moves through a label and distribution system with its own accounting rules, splits, and payment schedules. Then you have the cost of defending a serious federal case. On top of that, Pooh Shiesty is not able to earn the normal touring income, appearance fees, and promotional money that could come with a platinum-level artist actively working the road. His catalog is still moving, but the person behind the catalog cannot operate like a free artist. Put all of those factors together, and the situation becomes much more complicated than simply saying Gucci Mane isn't writing a check. The deeper story is about what happens when a young artist signs a major deal early in his career, before he fully understands every business term, and later feels trapped by an agreement that once looked like the opportunity of a lifetime. The 2017 deal offered Pooh Shiesty in 2020 was a major gateway to the success that followed. Shiesty Season, Back in Blood, major collaborations, features, chart appearances, and the massive attention around his name all came during the period when that label infrastructure was behind him. But major industry infrastructure is never free. Those opportunities come with contracts covering ownership, royalty splits, advances, recoupment, approval rights, distribution, and the length of the business relationship. As an artist's career grows, the same agreement that once opened doors can start feeling very different, especially when the artist believes the deal no longer matches his value. From Gucci Mane's perspective, however, the business relationship began as an investment in a promising artist. He signed Pooh Shiesty, helped build his commercial profile, and maintained the rights provided by their agreement, even while Pooh Shiesty was incarcerated. Whatever people think about the relationship personally, the legal and financial questions ultimately come down to the actual contracts, accounting records, and what can be proven in court. Whether those rights are fair, or whether the contract gives the artist enough control is a separate debate, and it's one the music industry has been having for decades. But Gucci Mane asserting his legal rights after an alleged armed robbery and kidnapping is not automatically the same thing as a label boss deliberately trying to financially destroy an artist. Those two ideas have been blended together online, creating a simple story out of a situation that is anything but simple. What Pooh Shiesty's situation really shows is how dangerous the combination of a complicated contract, limited control over masters, serious financial pressure, and one major decision can become. A deal that once opened the door to success can later become a source of frustration when an artist's career grows beyond what he expected when he signed. Pooh Shiesty came home in October 2025 with the kind of momentum most artists would dream about. His comeback music was performing strongly, his fan base was still there, and there were reports of interest from other industry players. The path to a legitimate second chapter was right in front of him, but then the situation took a dramatic turn, and prosecutors alleged that what followed in Dallas transformed a business dispute into a federal criminal case. Now, instead of focusing on touring, new music, major collaborations, and building long-term wealth, Pooh Shiesty is fighting a case that could reshape the rest of his life. He faces a reported February 2027 trial, potentially severe prison consequences if convicted, mounting legal expenses, and a catalog that continues generating attention through the same label structure he allegedly wanted to escape. And then there's the irony. The album released while he remained in federal custody is called All Eyes on Shiesty. Right now, for better or worse, that's exactly what has happened. Fans, the music industry, and the public are all watching what comes next. But the biggest financial problem was never simply Gucci Mane. It's the combination of the contract, the uncertainty surrounding his royalty situation, the costs that come with maintaining a high-profile lifestyle, the enormous expense of federal defense, lost opportunities, and, most importantly, the decision that prosecutors say turned a business dispute into something much more serious. That's the real story. A career that once looked like it was headed toward another massive chapter is now caught between music, money, contracts, and the courtroom. And until the contracts, financial records, and criminal allegations are fully tested, there is still a lot the public simply cannot know for certain. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think the 1017 contract was the root of Pooh Shiesty's financial problems? Or did his own decisions turn an already difficult situation into a much bigger disaster? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you found this breakdown interesting, hit the like button, subscribe for more stories like this, and share this video with somebody who has been following the Pooh Shiesty and Gucci Mane situation. And don't forget to check out the video on screen for another deep dive.